Hello, it's just me today to talk about meta spying and other things. It is Tuesday, June 24, 2025. So I think I'll start with the politics. The federal government has ordered California to remove its disturbing gender ideology content from their sex ed programs. And of course, that means removing explanations about gender identity and transgender people, which, I think kind of defeats the entire point. Those are topics on which people need to be educated. Certainly, when I was growing up, they didn't explain any of that stuff to me, and it probably would have helped if they had. Anyway, that's the culture war continuing as the Republican Party continues its practice of at least 3 or 4 decades of getting people all excited about some sexual minority that really doesn't matter and therefore distracting you so they can pick your pocket and steal your money, which is what they really want. So I hope at some point the promise of democracy will come true, that you can't fool all the people all the time, and the Republican voters will eventually realize that they've been sold a bill of goods. As far as I can tell, Republican voters are very, very worked up. The three issues I've seen them prominently talk about is abortion, um, transgender and gay people, and especially in sports, and the belief that there are a ton of immigrants that are horrible monsters out there killing people and eating their dogs and raping people and stuff, and they must be deported. And all three of those are ridiculous accusations, very much like Joseph McCarthy, that claimed there were all these communists in the government. These these problems are not as big as you think they are. Really, you can go your whole life without any gay person or transgender person doing anything bad to you, without any transgender girls competing with your girls in your high school, without any immigrants committing crimes against you. These things are not happening to any significant extent. What really is happening is the government, the rich people at the top, stealing all the money, like Elon Musk and Donald Trump and his cabinet of billionaires are stealing all the money, canceling all the government programs that benefit people like Medicare and Medicaid. That's what really matters. That will really affect a large number of people. And that's what you should be voting on, in my opinion, is the things that will actually affect you, and not trying to stamp out some uh, boogeyman that they make up to try to scare you with just because it's unfamiliar. Like gay people. Gay people are harmless. I'm in San Francisco surrounded by gay people. They never do me any harm at all. It doesn't affect me in the least. It's not like you will be destroyed if there's some gay people or transgender people around. It's not at all as important as having canceling Medicare. Anyway, hopefully they'll figure this out at some point. Another thing I heard about, which I looked up and it's true, which is a weird thing. Um, the four very wealthy executives from top tech companies were sworn into a unit uh, and given a military rank, sworn in as officers, as lieutenant colonels. And this is the CTO of Palantir, the chief product officer of OpenAI, the chief technology officer of Meta, and another person who worked at OpenAI and Palantir. They've sworn in top executives as lieutenant colonels, and I don't quite understand what this is. It might just be a grift where Trump sells you a military rank for a donation of money, like he'll sell you citizenship for a donation of money as his gold card program. Or it might be some kind of military organization to try to get these large tech companies cooperating with the military more closely. Palantir already is basically primarily a military contractor. So anyway, it's very bizarre. Um, I have worked for military contractors. I understand how it works, but it's just a business arrangement. Nobody's getting promoted to a military rank just for being in a civilian company. And I think that would make no sense at all. Anyway, it's very strange. Maybe this is just a symbolic move. I remember in Trump's first term, there was some kind of board of tech advisors and all kinds of CEOs joined this thing, and it turned out to actually have no consequence. But anyway, it's the selling of military ranks is a strange activity. I heard that they did it in the Civil War on the Confederate side. Now, look back, and what they were doing there was essentially the same thing that was common in militaries at that time. Anybody that could raise a troop could then lead their troop, and that would give them a de facto military rank. Um, this is perhaps something different. So, anyway, Texas. The governor has signed a bill requiring the Ten Commandments to be displayed in all classrooms. This is ridiculous on many grounds. One thing is an obvious, blatant violation of the separation of church and state. Since you forced the students to go to school and the government funds the school, that's a government agency, and a government agency cannot push one specific religion. That's the First Amendment. We do not have a national religion. A lot of Republicans like Marshall E. Taylor Greene are trying to end the separation of church and state and make the United States into a Christian theocracy. But the Constitution specifically forbids that. That was never part of America. Religious freedom was always the rule in America, and I think it should continue. Also, I think so this is going to be thrown out, I assume, although this current Supreme Court is extremely corrupt, but I don't think they go so far as to violate the First Amendment on an issue like that. Also, another thing is anybody that wants the Ten Commandments posted in a modern schoolroom or courtroom has not read them. The Ten Commandments are outrageously out of date and have very little application to modern life. I mean, the first commandment says you must be put to death for worshiping a different God. And a lot of other things in there that are very strange, very out of date, not at all what you want to be teaching people these days. You know, it's it's a valuable ancient document, but ancient documents only apply in very vague general terms to the modern world. Anyway, an outside group is trying to form an independent vaccine approval panel in America. The Now, I certainly understand now that we have a lunatic, RFK Jr., ending vaccines in America and publishing conspiracy theories and switching the government from actually determining what medicine is good for you to just pushing garbage conspiracy theories and giving them a force to the U.S. government. Uh, it would be nice if you have some third party to determine what vaccines are safe. But I think the problem is the reason you need the government to do it is because then all the healthcare plans will pay for it. So, perhaps in a logical world, an independent panel of experts outside the government could declare things safe, and then the healthcare plans, insurance companies might choose to pay for it because the vaccines will actually work, and that would save them money. So that might happen, but and we'll see what happens. What they're finding, of course, is you can form a panel of scientific experts, but they're not going to have enough authority to actually sway what happens with insurance companies and such. So uh, we'll see what comes of that. I understand the desire, but last survey I saw showed that 75% of research scientists are trying to escape America and flee to another country, which I think is probably far more productive because with the government not only not supporting you, but actively working against you, if you think about someone at the board of an insurance company who says, an independent panel of scientists outside the government has said that, say, the measles or COVID vaccine is good for you and it will save lives, but the government's official pronouncement is that this stuff is unsafe and it will just make you sicker. And half of America, at least, believes what the government says. So if my insurance company or health plan provides this vaccine, half of the people we want to serve will reject it. Now, just the fact that they're wrong is not the whole story. So I just think, it's very difficult to see how you can overcome the authority of the government on a matter like this. But I do applaud their desire to discover scientific truth. And, I've been a scientist earlier in my life. I'm a little bit like that and still. And this has been since Galileo's the thing. As a scientist, you figure out what's true, and then often it is not accepted by the world around you, and it doesn't have the effect you might want it to have. But so, at a scientific point of view, they're finding the truth. In a political point of view, this probably won't help. Anyway, so Europe is trying to uh, stir up hatred of encrypted chat apps, a common thing law enforcement wants to do. And so now they claim that teens have used encrypted chats to recruit for violence as a service, where they hire other teens to commit murders. And of course, they all do this because teens have less legal punishment when they get caught. And they say this is what organized crime looks like in 2025. And of course, they are passing laws in Europe that would require that the police can read the encrypted chats, thus de-encrypting them, which is a very common police response to this, probably a very bad response for the technical consequences, however. And another one that surprised me, Pavel Durov is the Russian that wrote Telegram. And he is a very strange guy. I mean, he made Telegram primarily to be absolutely bulletproof so no government could see into it until he got so much trouble for all the illegal content on Telegram that he started cooperating with law enforcement. And now he is trying to prevent his children from fighting over his inheritance. I don't know how old he is, but he apparently must is older. He thinks he's going to die soon. And he has declared that within 30 years, his money will be split up among his 100 children. Because apparently, like Elon Musk, in addition to having 6 children from relationships, he's donating sperm all over the place to spread his genes. Parent, I don't know why you would do this, except I assume he is into eugenics, like Elon Musk. He feels like he is superior to other humans, and his superior genes should spread more. So unlike Elon Musk, however, he seems to feel some parental duty towards those children produced by sperm donation. And so he wants to declare that his wealth will be split evenly among all these 100 children. It's an interesting issue, and one that I think Elon Musk has not spoken about publicly. If you're going to have all these children, then when you do die and you have a vast fortune, there will be a horrible fight among them over the money. You can watch what happened to the Murdoch family with just about 4 children, or any of the famous monarchies down through history. Uh, Usually they fight like crazy over the money. And I don't think any preconceived plan of making it equal will help that much, but we'll see. So Harvard is so old, it's been in America so long, I think it's America's oldest college, that it was built by slaves to some extent, and they hired people who were slaves. They were here in the time of slavery, and they've been talking about reparations. So they hired a researcher to go through the genealogy and find out how many descendants there are of people who were enslaved at Harvard so they can look into paying them reparations. And they fired him because he found too many slaves and too many descendants, so it would cost too much money. So even when he was hired, he said he would go to some of the people hired him, wanted him to find the slaves. Other people said, well, we want you to just reassure us that there aren't too many of them. And this is the problem with any kind of honest investigation. You can't start from the conclusion and just find evidence that proves the conclusion your client wants. If you really investigate, you're going to find the truth, and the truth is often not what the client wanted. So we'll see what comes of that. J.D. Vance, an appalling person, um, went and called the senator, Alex Padilla, Jose Padilla, and then said he just made a mistake. But this is not a mistake. This is, in fact, furthering the increasing demonization of the Democratic Party by Republicans. And there was recently a successful political assassination campaign in Utah. This preacher went and shot 2 Democratic lawmakers, killing one of them. He also shot their family members and their dogs and tried to kill their children, which is a very surprising activity for someone motivated by politics. And the end result is the majority in Utah in their state house flipped from Democrat to Republican since they killed the Democrats. One Democrat was enough to flip the majority. Excuse me, I don't think that was Utah. I think that was Minnesota. Anyway, this is the kind of activity which should be roundly condemned by both parties, but has not been. The Republicans are not condemning this very much at all. Donald Trump even refused to speak to the governor of the state, saying, it's a waste of time. So they're making it very clear that they support this. And this is something that Trump has had always encouraged violence among his followers. It's stochastic terrorism. This is like him praising the Proud Boys and stuff. Donald Trump would, in fact, be very happy if Republicans would start killing Democrats, and all the rest of the prominent Republicans seem to be following in lockstep with him, that this would really be great. And so, calling Alex Padilla, a Democratic senator, Jose Padilla, he did that because Jose Padilla is a known terrorist. In 2002, Jose Padilla tried to set off a radiological dirty bomb in America, and they thwarted that plot and arrested him. So this is like calling somebody Benedict Arnold or Osama bin Laden. It's giving him a name to make people hate him and to demonize him. And so this is very bad as America, currently ruled by Nazis, descends into a dictatorship. And a lot of people around me are concerned that Trump will declare martial law and cancel the elections in 2026. I don't think he can do that because he is incredibly bad at maintaining good relations with the military. But certainly he would like to, and apparently the entire body of Republican lawmakers are completely happy to go along with that. All they care about is power, and they couldn't care less about anybody's rights or the Constitution or justice or Christianity or anything like that. That's all garbage. All they want is power. Anyway, I don't think that's going to happen, but people around me are concerned about it. I think we can turn this around by electing more Democrats in 26 and 28. But we will see. Trump certainly tried to stay in power by force last time. In 28, Trump will certainly try to have violent mobs cancel the election and put him in even if he loses. He's done it, but I don't think he will at all leave office willingly unless he dies. But I think that he will be forced out of office by the Democrats who win, like he was in 2020, and then he'll scream forever that the election was rigged or something, but he wasn't able to find enough people willing to fight for that. And his actions have been so unpopular. I do not think he's going to have a sufficient band of fanatic followers like the Proud Boys to take the United States government by force in 28. But we will see. Anyway, for information security, there's some big ones here. Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince wrote an article which amazed me. I had no idea things were this bad. He said 10 years ago, Google would crawl 2 pages for every visitor it sent a publisher. And even that surprises me. I mean, I thought you just have to update your search engine, maybe every week or something. You'd make a copy of web pages and you'd send many more visitors there. But apparently that's not been true. He said now the ratio is 18 to 1. So Google search will read your content 18 times before it sends you one person that actually wants to read your page who might be a customer and pay you something. So the argument that Google is free advertising and helping you becomes less clear. But what's really the problem is AI engines are much, much worse. For AI companies, it's thousands to 1. They will scrape all your content thousands of times before they send even one customer to you, because the whole point of AI is you ask a question, you get the answer, and you never go to the page at all. It's not like Google where you get some 10 blue links and you click some of those links. So what Cloudflare points out is that this is going to make it impossible to publish anything on the web for profit. You put anything up, all your bandwidth and hosting costs will be consumed by AI engines. You will not get the actual visitors that would pay you money or buy your product or see the advertising on your page. So this is pretty serious. It does suggest that AI is going to change the business model of the internet so much that a whole bunch of companies, not just normal media companies like the New York Times and such, but all sorts of web properties will go down. Stack Exchange has already gone away effectively. And I think a lot of other pages will go down. That's an interesting situation. And I don't think there's any immediate cure, although Cloudflare is developing a product to stop AI engines from scraping your page. So that would be a short-term defense, like antivirus. Maybe that's the best answer. Maybe everybody will have to have an AI bot blocker on their page. But I think all that will mean is people will go to an AI, do a query, find the answer that won't even include the content of your page, and they'll never go to your page at all. I don't know. We'll see. And anyway, the one I thought was most important is Meta's attack on privacy. Android apps live in a sandbox. Each app runs with a different user account and it cannot see the data of the other apps. And so this provides Google's intention for this is to provide some degree of privacy. But Meta, Facebook, has been bypassing this with a dirty trick. What they've been doing is setting a listening port on the loopback address and then using that loopback network communication to take the cookies out of the Facebook pages and other pages and put them into the operating system where they can be shared. So they're escaping the sandbox and sharing data between apps. And then what they do is put web bugs on many pages on the internet, uh, little invisible images that mean every page does send some data to Facebook so it can load a cookie from Facebook. And so now they can spy on you. They can record how you use a website and respond to ads, and they can siphon sensitive information like financial information from tax filing websites and medical information from hospital websites. And even if you clear cookies, hide your IP addresses with a VPN, or browse in incognito mode, none of those will stop this. So this is what Uber did 10 years ago when an iOS app, they broke the rules of iOS apps. And when it came out, they were threatened to kick them off iOS. So anyway, this is pretty extreme. And it does mean they're spying on you much more than has been known previously. And it's pretty disturbing. But of course, it shouldn't surprise anybody that's followed Facebook. Facebook has done things like this throughout their entire existence. They promised their users privacy and then yanked the rug out from under them and betrayed them and shared their data more widely in a way that does them more harm because all Facebook cares about is exploiting you to make more and more and more money. And apparently, most people are content. They find Facebook so useful that they put up with this, although they do conceal the harm they're doing to you. So I think most people don't realize how much they're being exposed. But I'll tell you, I have at least 6 students that are being cyber stalked and having their lives ruined. So it really is the case that if somebody invades your privacy and tracks you everywhere, this can harm you eventually in ways that aren't obvious. Anyway, they do recommend some defense measures, like using a privacy-focused browser, avoiding in-app browsers, and deleting unneeded apps. So that's possible. I think they've also, after this came out, they removed that code, but I would not assume that they aren't just finding another way to do the same thing. Because this is a big part of the business model is to track everything you do and target ads based on it. All right. So, okay. Cloud Market Cap, a crypto site, had a breach where somebody was able to add JavaScript to one of their images. They have a sort of dynamic doodle image, which includes JavaScript. So they added malicious JavaScript that would pop up a box and empty and ask you to verify your wallet. And if you respond to that, they'll steal your funds. And attackers seem to somehow gain back-end access to modify the code on the site, and they put an expiration time on the site, on the attack. So this may have been an inside job. It may have been coming in through a vulnerability. It may have been a stolen credentials. The full details haven't come out. This is why if you do have crypto, you should have a cold wallet like a Ledger wallet. You shouldn't have it accessible all the time from your browser for just this reason. There's a bunch of attacks where you browse to a page and something pops up and it tries to empty your wallet. So if you're a crypto investor, you should not have your funds available online all the time. All right. And ProPublica did an investigation of the FDA, and they found that the FDA in 2022 placed an Indian factory on an import ban because they had unsafe conditions in their factory where they're making drugs, and they prohibited them from shipping drugs to the United States. But then, to avoid drug shortages, they forgave them and let them gave them specific exemptions to let them send drugs to America anyway, even though they were from the same substandard factory that was officially banned. They allowed into the USA at least 150 drugs or their ingredients from banned factories found to have mold, foul water, dirty labs, or fraudulent testing protocols, mainly from India. And they found that in fact the drugs were not good, and they identified more than 600 complaints in the FDA's files about these exempted drugs. each flagging concerns in the months or years after the medications were excluded from import bans, and cites 70 hospitalizations and 9 deaths caused by this practice. So, it looks pretty bad. Looks like the FDA was not doing their job, or at least they were not being transparent enough. If you have to do something like this, you really should not hide it. There's a general truth ever since the Nixon days. We said the cover up is worse than the crime. Um, Maybe they don't think the public could understand this, but I suppose you should realistically understand that if you take a generic drug that's cheaper, then you probably have more risk of that drug. An interesting issue. Anyway, um, reminds me of Viagra. I don't know the current situation, but I know when I looked into this 10 or 15 years ago, legitimate Viagra cost something like $50 a pill, but you could buy it from illegal online pharmacies for $1 a pill. And as far as anybody could tell, that was exactly the same drug made in the same plant. Although no one was ever able to do enough tests to really prove that. But it seemed like you could just save an awful lot of money and still get a good drug. And it's the same kind of issue here. At some point, there's going to be such a cheap price that you don't want to take that drug because it's not safe. But here, it seems like even the official drug is not safe because the FDA isn't doing their job of protecting us from bad medicine, which is a bad thing. So, the U.S. government, House of Representatives, has banned WhatsApp. So like they banned TikTok, and they said now WhatsApp is a Meta product, and it has high quality end-to-end encryption equal to Signal, from what I understand, but apparently it then doesn't encrypt data at the other end. Let's say the lack of transparency in how it protects user data, absence of stored data encryption, and potential security risks involved with its use. So I'm not entirely clear exactly what they're worried about with WhatsApp, although to be fair, I'm not very clear on what they're worried about with TikTok either. In both cases, they seem to be banning something based on sort of a vague idea that it's bad. Uh, but WhatsApp in America is an American company. So anyway, they blocked it. Perhaps this is because of Pete Hegseth's Signal chat. I'm just not quite sure what they're concerned about here. Anyway, the chief administration officer has set at least partial bans on DeepSeek, ByteDance apps like TikTok, Microsoft Copilot, and ChatGPT. So there's quite a few things you're not supposed to have on your phone if you're working officially for the government. And I'm a government contractor or contractor for critical infrastructure, and I had to take TikTok off my phone for that reason. Not that I'll miss it. All I seemed to find on TikTok was ads. Scott Galloway is always going on about how TikTok has this brilliant algorithm and you can waste hours staring at it because it's so engrossing. And I did not find that to be true at all. As far as I could tell, it was all garbage and it didn't learn anything. So maybe it's shooting for a different target audience. Anyway, so there's a company called Cluely, which is a startup that helps cheat on everything. And it was formed by a couple of young developers who were suspended from Columbia University for developing an undetectable AI-powered tool called Interview Coder to help engineers cheat on technical interviews. And they're getting a lot of funding and having a big buzzy party um, because apparently this Cluely product, people think it's going to be great to help people cheat on everything. So um, the explicit application to cheating is not so good, but I remember Google Glass 10 years ago when the first Google Glasses came out, they said you can walk around a party, look at someone, it'll do facial recognition to tell you who they are, and up will pop how much money they make, their address, whether they're married, their criminal record, and things like that. And they eventually decided not to implement that because it was an invasion of privacy. But certainly, a smart AI helping you in life might be good. I certainly appreciate the navigator on my phone, and this was the promise of Apple Intelligence that you could have a really smart AI that knows a lot about you that helps you do things like not forget your appointments and make dinner reservations and stuff like that. So, I mean, the idea that a smart AI could be integrating into your life might be helpful in more positive ways than just helping you cheat on exams. Anyway, uh, Russian hackers are bypassing Google's multi-factor authentication with a clever trick. They increased the social engineering argument until they convince you to generate an app-specific password and pass it to them. If you have Gmail and you turn on two-factor authentication, this means for most things you have to prove your identity with two factors, usually something like a password and a authenticator app on your phone. But or you have the newer passports, which require you to do biometric authentication on your phone. You can generate single factor codes for specific apps which are not yet enabled to use two factor. And the social engineers have found ways to pop up prompts and convince you to create one of those and give it to the bad guys. And of course, if they can trick you into doing that, then they get in. And the last one, I've talked about this many times, is they tested various AI, large language models, to see how much Harry Potter book they would repeat back. And this is how you test to see if the model is just reading all the books they can find to get the gist of them, or if they're actually memorizing the books and repeating them back, which would seem to be an obvious violation of copyright. And they found that the latest Meta AI model can reproduce almost half of a Harry Potter book exactly, whereas earlier versions only reproduce tiny fractions of the book. So in this would seem to say that these later models are in fact performing copyright infringement and not fair use. There's some rules in fair use. You can print like a few paragraphs from a book, and that's not copyright infringement because you're reviewing it or something. Uh, but we'll see how it holds up in court. And one thing I've observed a lot in court is that if you have a technical argument like this, often a court case is decided on some other issue that has to do with the detail of how the law was written or how it interacts with other laws that nobody can actually understand except a lawyer, which is why a lot of people feel very frustrated, like the legal system seems ridiculously unjust because you have something like a technical test that seems to clearly indicate which way it should go, but in court it hinges on some uh, baffling detail and goes the other way. But anyway, this does suggest that they are overtraining the models to where they're just memorizing the input data, which, by the way, is not considered to be the best way to train an AI model. But anyway, those are the news stories I have this week or this episode. I'll have another one of these on Friday.